Welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to go through 10 ways of designing flowers in Affinity Designer. To get started, I am a huge fan of using all of the shape tools that you possibly can to make your life easier. So I'm going to start with the cloud tool. So with this tool, it already has 12 rounded, they call bubbles. For this, I actually want 5, so I'm just going to drop this down to 5. Now, if you go to the inner radius, you can select how far in that goes. And I really like that because you can really customize your flowers this way. And I'm actually going to zoom in. I'm going to change that color so you can see it a little better. So now with that shape already created, you can convert to curves and you can change to the node tool. And I kind of like to play with mine so they're not so perfect. So just kind of moving some of these nodes around. And it gives it a little more of a personalized look as opposed to that perfect shape that it already was. With this selected, I'm just going to copy and paste using Command C and then Command V. You could also go to Edit Copy and then Edit Paste. Now I just want to decrease the size, put it in the center of the flower, and then I'm just going to lighten that up. And then you can choose to rotate it if you want. And then I'm just going to use the ellipse tool. Put it in the center, and then I'm going to go for a yellow for that center. And then if you want to add a leaf, once again, go back to your shape tools and you can use either the tear tool or the heart tool. I'm just going to use the heart tool. And then layer this behind by either going into your layers panel and just moving it below, or using your keyboard shortcut, which is Command and the left bracket. And I always like to grab everything when I'm done and group them together. So Command G or right click and group. So that is the very first flower done. For the second flower, I'm actually going to use the brush tool. And so I like to start at one point, go up, have a rounded corner, and then go up for a point, and then one more rounded corner, and then just close that shape. And you can always switch this. Right now it's on a stroke to a fill color, and you have your shape. Okay, so once you have that, you can continue just to copy and paste and rotate, or you can just continue drawing them out, whichever way you like to do it. Once again, I'm going to use the ellipse tool. So you could leave this exactly like it is, or you can go in with the brush tool and add in some elements to your flower. So I like to grab all of these at one time. For future use, if I want to scale these, I want to make sure to go ahead and expand that stroke. So go up to Layer, Expand Stroke, and then I'm going to group them together and layer them behind. And I'm also going to add a leaf to this with the tear tool. And you can always use the brush tool on these as well. For the third flower, I'm going to use the tear tool. And I want to soften this top point slightly, so I'm just going to use that corner tool and then just go in and soften that. And we are going to duplicate this and rotate it. So if you go up to that very top toolbar, you're going to see something that looks like a circle with 2 lines through it. Select that, and it is for your rotation center, and then I just want to move that all the way down to that bottom point. And then we're going to duplicate this by going to Edit and Duplicate, or use Command J on your keyboard, and then rotate this flower petal. And with that second one still selected, continue to hit Command and J, and that's just going to duplicate this all the way around. So once again, you have your flower. I just like to move things around so that it's not so perfect. And then I'm going to copy and paste and rotate that one, and then make it a little larger. And then I want to have a darker color on these. You can always add in some little small eclipses towards that center and maybe a different color. For the fourth flower, I'm going to go back to that cloud tool. And I am absolutely fine with the number of bubbles on that. I am going to increase that radius. And I want to convert to curves. And with the node tool selected, I'm just going to go ahead and play around with some of these points. Okay, so I like how that looks. Now I'm going in with the brush tool again. And I'm just going to switch up that color. Increase the brush slightly. You can do that with your right bracket. And I'm just going to draw in some rounded lines. And now I'm going to go in and do the same thing. So I'm just going to continue going towards the center. And then I want to add in some past the original ones that I did, just to fill in the shape a little bit more. Alright, so I like how that looks, and I'm fine with the color. Once again, I'm going to select all of those and expand them. For the fifth flower, or flowers actually, you could use the cloud tool again. I am actually going to use the brush tool so you can see what it's like to use that instead. I'm going to increase the size. And I'm just going to draw 4 petals, or 5. So I use these a lot in floral patterns that I make. And I just like to have a small little grouping of these flowers, and there's usually always 3 of them. And I've used the ellipse tool mostly for all of the centers of these flowers, but you can absolutely use the brush tool. When I've been drawing these, I've had the stabilizer on, and you don't actually have to have that. You have a little more freedom to draw when you don't. And I don't like that color, so I am going to switch that out. Flower number 6, I'm actually going to continue drawing with the brush, but I am going to turn that stabilizer back on. So this is for a tulip, so I'm just going to draw up like one rounded kind of like petal. I like to fill in as I'm going. Go up to the second side, do the same thing. It's okay if they are not even. And then go up in the center and create one more. Once again, with the brush tool, I want to add in kind of like the green from the stem and leaves onto the bottom of this. I'm going to decrease the size of that brush. Moving on to flower number 7. I'm actually going to use the ellipse tool, create more of an oval, copy and paste using Command C, Command V, and kind of layer these up together. And then I'm going to copy and paste, grab the first two, and create a darker of that color just because it's layered behind. And then I'm going to rotate these and bring them in. I'm also going to use the brush tool and add in a line kind of to show where the petal is. And you can do the same thing on the inside. And then I like to add in kind of like a center for the flower, even though it's not there. Moving on to flower number 8. Once again, use the cloud tool. I'm going to decrease the number of bubbles and then also decrease that inner radius. Convert to curves. Once again, I'm going to kind of play around with changing up some of these nodes. I'm just going to copy and paste. I'm also going to add in a round center. And you could be done with the flower there, but what I want to do with this one can be done with the brush tool. I'm just going to choose maybe a lighter version of that center. And then just draw some lines coming out of the center. And then add on some rounded edges to all of these. So you could use the brush tool, just take that stabilizer off. Or use the ellipse tool. And you can always use Option or Alt to duplicate those rounded ends. Flower number 9 is actually quite a bit like one of the earlier flowers. I'm just going to use the ellipse tool. This could also be kind of like a berry if you wanted to do that. I'm just going to copy and paste. Use a slightly lighter color, and then you can also add in some smaller details. Make a couple smaller ones. And then I'm going to use the brush tool yet again. And I'm going to go for a really deep green. The same thing that I did on that earlier flower, so just some little green parts to the bottom, and then draw in like a stem. And make sure, yet again, to expand. And I'm just going to grab everything and group it. And then moving on to the very last section. And this is completely different style, so this is more on the folk art or even like Scandinavian style. And I am going to use the cloud tool just because it is a lot easier. And I'm going to switch the number of bubbles. 6 is completely fine. And then I also want to use the ellipse tool. I'm actually going to go up to that fill color. It's already on lightness, but you can see how you could go to hue, saturation. But lightness works because I actually do want to lighten this. And then I'm going to copy and paste one more time. In the center, yet again, lighten up that color. Use the rectangle tool. to create that rectangle. I'm actually going to make it that same color as that original shape. I'm actually going to use the diamond tool, which seems probably really odd at this minute, but use the corner tool, select the nodes on the right and the left, and bring those in. And these 3 leaves that you have already created, I have grouped mine together, and I'm going to copy and paste, then go up to that very top toolbar, and then I want to flip those horizontally, holding shift so that they stay in line with the other ones. Group it, and then you have your folk-inspired floral design. And there you have 10 ways of doing flowers in Affinity Designer. I hope you enjoyed the class. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Thanks, guys.